Hi, everyone. This is Kerristen. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Relocate podcast. Today, we have a lovely lady who is based in Spain. So, I have with us today Cassandra Lay. She is originally from Northern Virginia, USA. She lived in Richmond, Virginia for a short period of time. Then she relocated to Toledo, Spain, small town in Spain, back in 2014. And she made a short stint back to the States, and she eventually relocated to Madrid and did some nomad ventures in the meantime and landed back in Toledo, Spain. She is a business owner as well, marketer turned content creator, and she also has a stationery shop. So if you are interested in learning more about that, definitely connect with Cassandra. I'll make sure I drop all of her details on how you can connect with her in the description of this episode. So everybody, it's Cassandra. Thank you for joining us.
Hello. Thank you
How
so
are
much for
you?
having me. I'm super excited to be
Yeah,
here. This is going to be so fun. I love sharing
yeah.
about moving abroad.
Right, right. So, before we get into the details, I think I've probably been to Virginia once, maybe twice, and it wasn't to visit, it was to drive through and en
Oh,
route to Washington, D.C.
yes.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about what Virginia was like? Like, how was your upbringing? Um, what made you want to consider leaving in the first place? Yeah, let's start there.
So my parents are actually originally from Vietnam, and they came over to the United States in the 80s. Me and my two sisters were born in Virginia, and we are originally from Northern Virginia, so about 30 minutes outside of Washington, D.C. What I guess growing up, my area was quite diverse. Okay, I'm gonna say while I was younger, it was like semi-diverse, and then as I got older, it got more diverse. But Virginia, I think, or at least Northern Virginia, is super diverse now. There is a really large Vietnamese community there, at least in the area that I am from. There's also a large Latin American population, Arab population, and I think even like Korean population. So we have like a large mix of different cultures, languages, restaurants, types of supermarkets, and all of that stuff. And I grew up in the suburbs. So it was very middle class, single family home. I went to a private high school, and then I went to a liberal arts college in the mountains in the Shenandoah Valley. And yeah, being in Virginia, I mean, Northern Virginia really provides you with almost anything that you could ever want. And if you want to work in government and become a consultant, as everybody does in the area that I'm from, then you are totally set up to do well, make good money, and be a government consultant for one of the, I guess, big four companies like Deloitte or KPMG, Ernst and Young, all of those. And I think when I decided to actually move, it was because I didn't want to get into like that type of lifestyle. And I think growing up, my parents had always taken me and my sisters to travel. So for our family vacations, we would travel to different states, to the beach. They would take us actually even abroad to the Caribbean. So we visited like the Bahamas, Jamaica, Aruba. They even took us abroad to Europe. And when I was really young, I think in the first grade, they took us to Vietnam. So travel has always been like a large part of my upbringing. And I guess after I graduated college, I was just thinking, well, I don't really want to work right now. So let's do something different.
I think that is neat that you already you already started life surrounded with people who have like a great sense of what the world has to offer. Um, to them, I'm assuming the being in the U.S. Didn't seem like so much of a bubble when they already knew like there's so much to experience, and so like in a sense, it's kind of like you got um, a worldview of that as a youth, and growing up and being able to take these trips around the U.S. and outside of the country. How would you say that shaped your perspective as you graduated from college and decided that you didn't want to work and you wanted to do something different?
Yeah. I would definitely say, like, I came up from a very privileged background thanks to my parents and like the work that they put in. So I think because of that already like level, I think it really shaped, I guess, the idea that there is so much more to see. And I think being Vietnamese American, like having one culture within my household or within my parents' house. So like, you know, when we were home, the traditions and the food that we ate and maybe like the language we spoke at home was a mix of English and Vietnamese. And some of like the customs that we had were more traditional Vietnamese. And then outside of the house, everything was very, I guess, the standard American culture. So having that and then having friends from lots of different diverse backgrounds, I think also made me more curious to want to see what else was out there. And I think that led to the decision to try and find ways to travel and get paid to travel or have it be like a lifestyle choice and not just like, oh, I'm going on vacation, if that makes sense.
Oh no, that yeah, that definitely helped me a lot, and brings me to my next question of how exactly were you able to break into that standard of uh, being able to make relocating and travel more of uh, something that was your speed?
Yeah. So, I guess I can share about like the first time that I left the United States. So, I had studied hospitality management in college, and that basically trained me to become a hotel manager or somebody who works in like restaurants or events. Or even tourism. And although I love that field and that industry, I realized that, oh, those people end up selling their soul to hospitality, which means that they are working during the holidays and also on the weekends. And so I saw a lot of my friends have like get full-time jobs in hotels where they would wake up at like 3:30, 4:30 in the morning, go in for their shift, and then they would end their day around 2:33 p.m., which technically is so ideal because now you have the rest of the day to do whatever you want. But when I talked to them about it, they were like, "Oh no, Cassandra, like I am dead tired. I can't even like muster up energy to do anything else. So I come home and I crash. I wake up and I have dinner and then I sleep and then I repeat." And that was just like, oh my gosh, I do not want to live like that. And I wanted to figure out, okay, is there something else that I want to do besides like this traditional corporate path? So I applied for a program to teach English abroad in Spain. It's called the Auxiliares de Conversación. It's basically a program with the Spanish government to come over and be an English language assistant to other bilingual teachers in the schools. Um, so I found out about that through a family friend who was already doing the program. I applied and was like, okay, mom, dad, I'm taking a gap year. I don't think I want to do corporate America. So I think I'm going to travel and I'm going to live abroad and I'm going to be in Europe. And I applied to the program and they accepted me. And I was like, so I graduated in May and I left for Spain in August of that same year. So like
2014.
2014. So it was May, June, July. Yeah. I left at the end of August. So I had 3 months after graduating, prepped all my things, and then I left August 2014.
Uh, did you know any Spanish
Yeah,
before
that's a great
then? Or
question.
okay, yeah. Or did they help you transition? Maybe with like a host, like a housing host or something of that
Um,
nature, where you could speak with someone who's native to Spain.
so that program that I applied to and moved to Spain with, they don't actually provide you with that type of support. So it was basically they gave you the like letter that said that you are contracted to come to Spain on a student visa to help teach English. And they kind of gave me like, oh, here's the protocol to get like your visa and stuff like that. But once I got the visa, it was up to me to go over there, find an apartment, set myself up, go to the school, and then if I had a contact in the school, then they were kind of like my point of contact to help me, but they weren't really there to like fully help me integrate. So it was a lot of just rolling with it. And I did not speak a lot of Spanish when I had first arrived. I thought I did. I thought I was more fluent than I actually was. And then when I landed and people started talking to me, um, it was like a big shock that I actually don't know how to speak the language. And I think the first like 3 to 6 months, I was constantly like so tired. Like my brain, every day after I came home, I was just like, I cannot do anything else. Like, please, somebody just speak to me in English because I am so tired from like translating and just hearing everything in a different language.
I'm glad you spoke on that because it's one thing to be outside of that space where people are speaking the native language 24/7, and that's like the primary language. And then like us being in schools and learning how to speak Spanish, and then maybe studying abroad for a bit, or things of that nature. Like it's a whole different ballpark.
Oh yeah. Like
Oh,
I remember I would go to dinner with friends and like people tried the best that they could to integrate me. And I think because my language level was just not really at any level to be sitting in like a dinner conversation where the conversation is just flowing. It was really hard in the beginning because I just felt so like an outsider. And as you're learning a language, at least for me, what happened was maybe eventually my language skills started to improve, but they weren't fast enough to interject and like, add a funny joke. Because by the time I figured out how to say it in Spanish, they were like 5 topics like past.
oh,
And I was like, okay, well, the next one, I'll come in the next one. But it's a lot of like, it was really tiring.
oh my goodness. I how did that impact uh like if any like your confidence and your ability to really feel settled in Spain? How was that
Mm.
for you, like emotionally, mentally? Like I already know you mentioned you were drained just trying to like have that switch in your brain go from from Spanish English, trying to really develop vocabulary, things of that nature. What was going through your mind?
Oh gosh. Okay, so I think I have to answer this question in like 2 parts. One, the first one is I clearly present as Asian. Like I look, I guess what a quote unquote typical Asian person looks like in terms of like race and what people imagine, even though, this is all a social construct. So where I went, so I'm from the suburbs of Washington, D.C. in Northern Virginia, which is a very populated and highly dense area. The town that I originally moved to when I first moved to Spain in August 2014 was a town of 15,000 people.
Oh.
Yeah. My dad actually came with me the first, like when I moved there, because he was like, "You're my first child. I need to make sure that like you are okay." And I remember when he dropped me off, he asked me, he was like, "Do you think you'll stick out here? Like, there aren't a lot of Asian people here. Do you think you'll stick out?" And I was like, "Dad, it'll be fine. Like, I stick out everywhere I go. I'm just like a loud personality and I'm very like, extroverted." I don't think that's what my dad meant. And I don't think he had the heart to tell me, like, "No, Cassandra, I think you're going to stick out because like you're one of the very few Asian people in this place." So that I think being one of the few Asian people, and back then, Spain still is quite like what I like to say a homogenous country. So it's just lots of Spanish people. And going into a small town of 15,000, it's mostly just Spanish people. And the few Asian people who are there are probably from mainland China. And that I think was a shock for me to not be around other races and like people of color and like other cultures. And I think it was a shock for the Spanish people in the town because they had never met like a hyphenated person, if that makes sense. Like they have met Spanish people who are born and raised in Spain. They have met Chinese people who come from China or Moroccan people who come from Morocco, but they had never met like somebody like me who has dual, I guess, like dual culture, dual identity of being Asian American, specifically Vietnamese American. So that already made my confidence, I think, drop a lot because a lot of people would stare at me and kind of like make comments. And then because of the extra layer of not being able to defend myself in Spanish at that time, I think made my confidence level drop even more because if somebody did say something that maybe wasn't nice or actually was racist, I didn't know how to say something back. And then also already being Asian, I think not being able to present myself as like the person that I am and just like, I don't know, you might get it because I feel like people of color, Black people get it. Like you have we have to always show that we are at like specific levels to be taken seriously. So because my language skills were not at the level to show who I am, and like my intelligence and all of that stuff, I think that also made it worse. Because in English, if somebody tries to come at me or even in any situation, in any like social situation, at a work situation or anything like that, like I can always present myself and defend myself in any circumstance because I have the language skills to do so. In Spanish, in 2014, I did not. It was pretty bad.
Oh my gosh.
That was a really long answer.
No, like I've never thought about having, because it's one thing to be like, I can't hide the color of my skin, like it's
right.
I can't hide that. So just being outside in the US, and I already get like sometimes, depending on where I go, different looks and attitudes that are kind of have that racial undertones. And yeah, it's not pretty, but at least I can say something about it like right away. I'd never thought about going to another space, and actually living and existing in an area where or there's not a lot of people who are like me, and I can't really break down how I feel in that moment if I heard something negative about me in a different language. I've practiced um how to say certain things in Spanish, like um how do you go to the store, like donde está el baño, like things of that nature. Like that's what they taught us in school, and certain things that I've just picked up on, but I never I never thought,
Yeah.
never clicked about what would I say if someone said something bad about me. Oh,
And I didn't think about it either because I just thought this is the adventure of a lifetime. I am fresh out of college. This is the dream. I am moving to Europe. I'm going to have a gap year teaching English. I get to travel all over Europe, like in cheap travel. And while my friends are working in corporate America. So the thought of like, oh, I need to like learn how to defend myself in a different language never came up. And I don't think like my parents probably experienced it because they came to the United States when they were in their teenage years. So I think my mom was 14 and my dad was 16. And I mean, I'm sure they had to learn how to defend themselves in English because when they came, they only spoke Vietnamese. But I don't think it's something that you think about to tell your child because they also decided to move abroad in different circumstances. So being in the context and being like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to like say something and I don't know, give a comeback or tell somebody off or even argue to defend myself. Not like it happened all the time. Like, these are very specific circumstances, but it was something that I definitely was like, oh, I didn't realize that this is now part of my experience because I decided to relocate.
understandable.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, gonna shift gears a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
We're gonna
Sorry, that
talk
was like
more. No, this
heavy.
is good. No, this is good stuff, and I think this is another reason why I wanted this platform to exist, because I want people to think beyond the basics of relocating. It's more than just packing boxes or packing bags. And yes, the excitement is there, like that little honeymoon phase, but depending on where you move or where you relocate to, um, there's going to be a whole different experience and things that you may not think of, you may not
Yeah.
consider. So, I thank you for shedding light on that a bit.
Yeah.
I didn't expect to take the conversation there, but I'm glad it went there. Yeah. All right. So, yeah, let's talk about more so of, you were in Spain, but then you ventured back to the States once that the teaching or the teaching assistant
Hmm.
opportunity ended, and you went back. I'm assuming because that ended, right? The
Um,
the
kind
contract.
of.
Okay.
Not sort of. I can explain.
Okay.
So, so technically, the first time I came in August 2014, it was for 9 months for teaching. Um, that was the agreement that I told my parents. I'm going there for just 1 year. Don't worry, I'm coming back, and I'm going to get a real job. Um, it didn't happen. So after the first year teaching English, I realized, oh, I need more time. I still don't know what I'm doing with my life. Like, we got a lot to explore in Spain. Why go back early? So I actually renewed for a second year
Oh, that's neat.
and decided to teach English for a second year, moving to the south of Spain. During my first year teaching English, though, I guess this is the whole reason why I'm still in Spain. I actually met my partner who is Spanish. And really, we decided, okay, let's move to the south of Spain together, and I'll teach English. And he found another regular job in the office. And we were living together in the south of Spain for another year. And then because I needed like visa paperwork, I was going to renew for a third year, and we were going to move up to Madrid. And after 2 years teaching English in small towns in Spain and actually dealing with a lot of like the racism in the small towns, and then kind of feeling this is where I got FOMO my second year teaching English, because I was living the life abroad in Europe. But then because my friends were now 2 years into their corporate careers, I saw them buying their first cars, like a nice BMW, a Mercedes, an Audi, whatever nice car there are. And I saw them moving out of their parents' homes into their own apartments, and also having big adult money to do cool things. And I got FOMO, and I was like, what? What am I doing? I'm just living abroad, teaching English, like living paycheck to paycheck, not really with like a future or like a real career path. I also don't want to deal with living in small towns of Spain anymore. And besides going for a third year teaching English, I decided to move back to the United States and get a real job so that I could have big adult money like my friends and move forward in the corporate ladder as my friends were doing, because I got FOMO. Yeah.
You left your relationship. Wait, were you in a relationship by then, or like how was that?
Yeah, we were still together. We did actually a year and a half almost of long distance.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I moved back to the United States. I think it was June 2016. Got a full-time, well, not a full-time job. I got an internship first for 3 months, and then they offered me a full-time job. So I got a full-time job working at an environmental consulting firm and doing corporate girly stuff. And me and my partner were doing long distance at the time, and we were having conversations about like, okay, this is okay for now. This is okay in the like meantime, but we have to kind of decide who's gonna move or what are we going to do. So it was either that he would move to the United States or I would move back to Spain. And then by December 2017, so yeah, a full year and a half, I left, quit my job, and then moved back to Spain.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
What did it take to keep that connection, that romantic connection, strong? Because Virginia, you moved back to Virginia.
Yes.
And is that a 7-hour or 6 or 7-hour time
6-hour
difference?
time difference. Yeah, so we were behind by 6 hours in Virginia, or I was behind.
Okay. Yeah, like what did it take to keep an international long distance relationship strong? Because everybody, if you're listening, Cassandra and her partner have been together for about 10 years now.
Yeah, we're about to celebrate 10 years, a whole ass decade.
And I'm so happy for you, and I can't wait to talk about it more. But when you relocated, how did y'all keep the love strong?
Yeah, so it was actually kind of hard. I didn't mind, I think, the long distance. If you ask my partner, I think he was like, this is like absolutely terrible. I hate this. Like, this is not something that I want to be doing. Of course, it wasn't something that I wanted to be doing either, but I knew that if I stayed in Spain, my like mental health and just feeling good would be worse. So we went and visited each other. So he actually came and stayed with me and my family for 3 months. Yeah, so he stayed with us for 3 months to do like a trial run of what life in the United States could look like. He lived with me and my family in the basement of my parents' home, paying them rent, actually. Yeah. And we did that for 3 months. He tested out what it was like to live in Northern Virginia and kind of understand a little bit more of the culture and what it was like. And then after he left, then we did more like long distance. And then I went to visit him for 2 weeks and we stayed in Madrid. So I kind of got to see what it was like again to live in not like a small town like I was doing when I was teaching English, but like the capital city of Spain, a metropolitan area, what it was like to really be in a more diverse space. And I liked that a lot more. And I thought, oh, this is actually something that I think I can see myself, doing and seeing myself living here. And then I went back, and then he came again, I think, for 2 weeks, closer to when I was moving. So we visited each other like every maybe 4, 5, 6-ish months. And then we would chat throughout the day. And it was hard because I think because of the 6-hour time difference, by the time I got out of the office, which was like 4 p.m., me driving home from the office to my parents' house, it was 10 p.m. for him. So he was like getting ready for bed. And that was the only time that we had to talk. So it was me. I don't know if I should be saying this because it's technically dangerous. You shouldn't be talking on the phone while you're driving. But I would put him on speaker, driving home from the office. And that would be like maybe 45 minutes from the office to my parents' house. And that's when we would talk while he was getting ready for bed and I was driving home in traffic. And we did that for a really long time. Yeah.
Ooh. Side note, how
Yeah.
did y'all meet?
How do we meet?
Yeah.
I realized I didn't even share that. So, oh gosh. So this story I feel like may be a long story, but I'm going to try and keep it short. So, my partner is originally from the town that I moved to my first year in Spain. And the apartment that I found to move into, he used to live there. So I found the apartment, didn't know anything about him. And when I moved in, I had a roommate. And it just so happened that my partner used to live in that apartment and had the same roommate. My partner was living in London for 3 months before I came. And then the weekend that I arrived to Spain, there was like a town festival or something, like carnival. And my roommate at the time was like, oh, let me introduce you to my friend. He speaks English. He just came back from London. And I was like, great, because I don't speak Spanish. So I need somebody to talk to. And my roommate didn't really speak English. So we went to like the town square and everybody was out drinking and like having a good time. And then he was like, oh, hey, Cassandra, this is my friend, Mario. And he just came back from London. I thought my partner was British because I didn't realize that a lot of Spanish people went to London to work and like learn English. And then when he said hello, I was like, that's so weird. This is not a British accent. This is a Spanish accent. And that's how we met.
Aww.
And I think it wasn't even like anything magical because both of us didn't really speak the other person's language. I think the entire night he taught me words in Spanish. Like he taught me how to say eyebrow, eyelid, eyelashes, and I just repeated words because I didn't really know how to speak Spanish.
I love that. Okay.
Yeah.
So
And 10 years later, now I am fluent. So yeah.
yes, yes. Okay. Gotta love it. So okay, so he lived in London at the time where you two met?
He had just moved back from London the same weekend I moved into that apartment that he used to live in. Yeah.
What a full circle moment.
Yeah. And then because he was back in town, everybody was like seeing him at the town square and hanging out. And my roommate was like, "Oh, cool. He's the only person I know that speaks English in this town. So let me introduce you to him." Not in like any romantic way. It was just because literally both of us could not communicate to each other. So yeah.
Aw.
Yeah.
Uh, were you able to kind of bounce ideas off of each other when it came to um, with you being in Spain and you're breaking that language barrier and finding your bearings in Spain, whereas he was in the States trying to do the same? Like, where y'all kind of just bouncing ideas off of each other as far as like best practices?
Um, I'm trying to think. I do remember saying like because I live in a suburb area, it's very different than Europe because you do need a car everywhere you go, and public transport is like unless you live in the city, public transport from the suburbs is not like the most reliable. So I think when he decided that, oh, I want to come over and test this out, I think I also don't think I realized or had the know-how to actually support him.
Mm.
Culturally, maybe with like culture shock stuff, maybe. But then I think I was back in like my normal, like, I guess, air like context and like my normal environment and like where I grew up. So there were a lot of things that I don't think I realized were specific like cultural practices or best practices or here are like tips to do this in like our country. I actually didn't know that. And I think also because inside my house is like Asian, Vietnamese culture, and outside of the house is not. I also didn't really know how to differentiate both. And I think whenever I did share any best practices, if I could remember them, I think I didn't know to say, oh, but maybe other families in the United States might not do it this way because this has like a little twinge of like a little flavor of Vietnamese culture. So I think he was kind of like, what the heck is happening?
Oh.
Yeah.
Mm. It sounds like y'all have a very exciting, um, very adventurous,
Yeah.
uh, just relationship. Y'all have traveled together internationally, lived in, well, not lived, but just kind of, been in certain spaces that aren't as unique to Spain for a bit. Um, and now you're, I know you mentioned that eventually you moved to Madrid, bigger area, more like metropolitan, probably a little more diverse too.
Mhm.
Um, and now you're in Toledo again, where you mentioned earlier that uh, you've had like some ups and downs.
Yeah.
Um, so what led to that decision to be back in Toledo?
Yeah. Okay, so the first time that I came here was not specifically in Toledo.
You know what?
Um,
I should have asked you how to pronounce that because I'm
it's
thinking
fine. A
like
lot of people
Toledo,
always say Toledo
Ohio,
because
and
yeah,
I'm like,
Ohio.
yeah.
If I say Toledo though, it's probably because it just comes out in Spanish. So when I first came here, I moved to a small town outside of Toledo, which is where my partner's from. Now we are in Toledo, the city. So it's still a lot smaller than Madrid, but better than a small town. So that's good. But We were in Madrid for 3 years, so from 2017 until the end, about November 2020. And we were in a very small apartment. I think it was like 350 square feet. Very small, very small, very, very small. And I worked from home. He worked in an office. I worked from home. And I think we were happy in Madrid. It was a little bit chaotic because I think being in a larger city, there's just like more, I think, like pressure. There's a lot more urgency to literally everything. And people just move at like a faster pace. I kind of think like, oh yeah, when you're like living in New York, you could just imagine like the pace of New York, and that's kind of, I mean, in Spain it's a little bit slower, but still fast pace for what it is. And I think my partner didn't really like Madrid. I thought, oh, this is like awesome because I can like move around in the metro. I can meet so many international people. I can meet other folks from the United States. This is great. And then COVID happened. And
Mm.
then Spain had a really, really strict quarantine law. So we actually weren't allowed to go outside at all, except for to throw away our trash. Um, if you had a dog, you could walk your dog, only a 100-kilometer radius. And then you could only leave to go to the pharmacy or to the grocery store, but only one person from the household could leave to do those things. So, yeah, that was what it was like for 2.5 months. And being together now, both of us working at home in a 350 square foot apartment. By the end of it, we were like, we gotta go. Like, we cannot live in Madrid. I started getting like really bad anxiety just with like the amount of people that were always around. I think also in the metro was always like really, really crowded. And I was like, I don't know about this anymore. This is not the type of lifestyle that I want. We want something better. If we were to move into a larger apartment, rent increased by a lot after COVID. And then we were both thinking, okay, if Spain goes into quarantine again because something happens, and we have something where we literally can't leave the house again, we cannot stay in this 350 square foot apartment for another 2.5 months. So we left and we did a digital nomad year. Also, don't recommend to do a digital nomad year during COVID. That is like not smart for anybody. But we did a digital nomad year because we were like, okay, let's just try and find somewhere else to live. And we moved to different areas around Spain. And then we decided to go to Toledo because that's where my partner's originally from. And because he has an autoimmune disease, so he wanted to be closer to his specialist, his doctor. So we decided to move here, and we've been here now for in August it'll be 4 years in this
Okay.
city.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a lot, but that's really why we left and decided to come to Toledo.
Now that you're settled and you've been in that space for a few years, like, what was the overall, like, the biggest adjustment that you've had to make, and how do you feel now about where your life stands today?
Hmm. Um, so for me, I think the biggest adjustment is while Toledo is still considered a city, it does not move at the same pace as Madrid. And it definitely has a small city, big town feel, if that makes sense. So when I first moved here, I had to really learn, I think, just how the city moves. And not in terms of like public transport and like getting around and stuff, but like the energy, I guess, if that makes sense, of the city. Um, how people do things here in comparison to how they do things in Madrid, how like relationships are formed, how you make friends in this city and not in Madrid. I think that was like a really big learning curve for me because I kind of just thought, oh, I'll just act like it's Madrid. And the like cultural dynamic, even though like Madrid is 45 minutes away, I think just I mean, I guess the best way I can describe it is every city has like its own identity and its own way of functioning. And I thought that it was just all going to be the same. And I had to really learn the identity of Toledo and how it functions and how people move. And yeah, that was a big shock. But now it's better.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just thinking about how your career path has transitioned and it hasn't quite been linear. And I know you mentioned some people back home, like you saw them and from the outside looking in, like their careers seem to be progressing. I just love how social media just makes it
Oh, I
seem
know,
like
right?
everyone is just doing so
Everybody is
fine and dandy.
thriving.
Yeah, just getting homes and building families and
Seriously.
whatnot.
I was like, wait, they bought a BMW. I want a BMW.
Yeah, society has a way of kind of projecting that type of lens on us and making it seem like you have to uh, build your career in your 20s and find someone to be with for the rest of your life and get married and have kids and retire when you're 60 or maybe 70 if you're
Yeah.
lucky. um, can you speak to how you were able to unlearn that pattern of what society in the US expects from us, and
Oh,
how did you uh, let's just start there because I got another
okay.
question about your professional trajectory. But yeah, let's start there.
Okay. How I unlearned. I think it happened when I was in college. So I actually have a minor in sociology and was going to do double major in sociology. And I took a sociology of work class actually that made me critically think about business and work and how specific like larger corporations really, this sounds political, but really kind of like run society. Um, and because of that, it made me really start questioning, okay, what do I actually want to do? And do I want to work in corporate? Do I want to partake in like that type of activity to make money? And I think when I was a junior, senior is when I started doing a lot of research on my own just about like how to make money online, how to make a living doing something else that's not like a traditional job. My parents are both entrepreneurs, and then a lot of actually, I think all of my aunts and uncles on both sides of my family, except for maybe one or two uncles, are also all entrepreneurs. So I had a lot of that upbringing, maybe just like soaking it up as a child. And I just thought, I think I gotta go and do something on my own. And when I was a senior in college is I think when I started really finding freelance gigs for writing and also just like probably random like writing, marketing, research jobs that were paying what I thought was like good money at that time because I was like, oh my gosh, this is unheard of. Like I can sit in my bed and write an article and somebody pays me like and they pay me like on time. So this is great. I don't have to be like in a traditional office job. And I just thought, okay, if that can happen, then I can find other ways. And I have always been really interested in blogging and being part of back then, like the blogging world, what people call now the creator world. And was just like, okay, I see other people doing it. I see them making big money. Like I can make big money too. And I think that's just how it led me to kind of unlearn that I don't need to be in an office to make a living and I can kind of create my own job. really doing anything.
Yeah. You mentioned like off during like offline time when I got an opportunity to know you a little bit better, um, and you mentioned like your takeaway of being in Spain, and you mentioned like you can create the opportunities in life that you want. Um, just like your overall takeaway about being outside of the U.S. was that, um, and now you're in this space where you are a business owner. Um, I love the name of like the quirky pineapple. I love that.
Thanks.
I think it's cute. And you are, you're in this marketing space. You do content creation. Now you're also providing stationary items in your shop. So how I know you mentioned like you already had like that structure, that foundation from school, from your family, just watching them. Um, but once you actually got to Spain permanently and you realized that like the teaching was okay, you don't want to do that anymore. I guess that's where it led
Yeah.
you. Okay. Um, what did it take to get to where you are today? And what, if any, were some challenges that you faced in the process? Because, I mean, you know that saying, Rome's not built in a year.
Yeah.
And a lot of people quit, after a year, like entrepreneurs in general. I can't speak for outside the U.S., but I know, like, at least in the States, like, people don't make it past the first year. How did you do it?
Oh gosh. Ooh, okay, so that first year in general, I think to get to where I am today, so I am by the end of this year, it'll be 7 years working for myself. Um, Funnily enough, I took an accidental sabbatical, turned adult gap year in 2024, and decided at the end of 2024 that I was actually going to pause my business and reimagine how business looks for me, mainly because I was doing all the things that I did in the beginning of my business. Basically, I was doing all the things that I was doing. What? I was doing all the things from the beginning of my business today after 5, 6 years of running the business. And thanks to me literally grinding and becoming a workaholic and like doing, honestly, I can't even give you like a direct answer to say this is exactly what I did to get to where I am today, because I feel like it was just a lot of grit. Like I showed up wherever I could. I Googled, I put myself out there. I networked so much, like in person in Madrid. I would fly to like different places in the United States. Like if I was visiting my family, I would be looking for networking events. So I would see my family and then I would look for networking events in the United States in the Washington D.C. area. If like a business opportunity or like a work opportunity came up in LA, I would get there and also look for more networking opportunities and just find like collaborators. And I honestly, I put myself out there to do anything like with no fear of like rejection. And I was just like, people need to know me because I don't know how to get myself out in front of anybody else. And this is how they're going to buy from me. Um, and I kept that up for a really long time. And in 2020, during COVID, and 2021 is when the business boomed because everybody was forced to be online. And they were like, Cassandra, I need to learn how to do digital marketing. I need to learn how to do like social media. Can you teach me? And that's when all of my hard work from the past 3 years really started to like compound and bring more money in. And then I kept it up for 2 years, and then I got burnt out because I was grinding and continuing to do everything that I was doing in the first 3 years, on top of all of the work that started to come in now. And then I had to scale back. So I scaled back, switched like the business model to focus on a different thing, and it started doing really well. 2023 happened and the boom of AI. And then business started going down again because of AI, people want to use ChatGPT or AI tools to do their marketing now, which is fine. But that also made a really big dip in our, our revenue and cash flow and clientele. And then in 2024, I was like, no, I'm going to continue pushing. I'm going to show up. I'm going to put myself out there using all of the tactics that I used the first couple years when I was in business. But at this point, I'm tired. I have been doing this for 6 years. I was pushing and just trying to scale something, and it would be grow or put myself out there, get lots of things coming in, have the means to scale, and then try and scale, but couldn't do it because I was so tired and didn't have the foundation to really support the growth. And then in 2024, my grandma passed away, and I realized, so I had to fly back to the United States, and then I realized, oh, I am not running my business in how I really want to, because if something were to happen to my immediate family and I need to fly back, my business would not allow me to support my family in the way that I would need to if something big were to happen, maybe to my parents. I could not. So had a little bit of a crisis moment, and then I took an accidental sabbatical, turned adult gap year. So now that we're talking, I am in a phase of figuring out what my next steps are. That was a very long-winded answer to basically say I grinded really hard, got burnt out, and then realized, okay, maybe Cassandra, it's time to change something. And then it took the death of my grandma and flying home to basically be the shock to be like, okay, it's time.
I'm sorry to hear about your grandma, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
I think it was time though. She was great, but it was her time.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Okay. I get that though. The whole entrepreneurship is
It's something.
It's something indeed. Yeah, it definitely takes a special type of person to be able to withstand the ups and downs, because it's gonna feel like you're speaking to yourself at the beginning. But you went out and you networked in multiple languages.
Yeah, that was really hard. I not only networked in multiple languages, in English and in Spanish, but I had to learn business cultural norms in Spain. So, how we do business in the United States is maybe not how Spanish people will do business, because, just culturally it's different and what they value is different. So, yes, at that point, my Spanish was a lot better, but my business acumen was great, but my cultural understanding of how business works in Spain, I didn't have. So I was just throwing myself out there and learning along the way.
Kudos to you.
It was a lot.
I know that's not easy.
No, I think I cried a lot. I think I cried the first I'm laughing now, but I swear I cried almost every day the first 6 months when I permanently relocated to Spain. And I would ask my partner all the time, I'm like, should I just go? This is terrible. And he was like, are you really bad? If you're really bad, we can go back to you can go back to the United States, and we'll figure it out, and maybe I'll just move to the United States. And I was like, no, I'm not a loser. I'm not gonna quit. Just let me cry.
I'm glad you had that support system. That's
Yeah,
important. I
definitely.
don't know how people do it without a support system. But
Oh,
if
I don't
you're
know either.
listening, right? If you're listening and you have done it, please reach out to me
Yeah,
because
I'm
I would like
curious.
to have
Please
you
let
on.
us know how you did it because honestly, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm glad that um you've had that full circle moment of meeting your partner. Um, do you think how have you imagined what your life in Spain would be without your partner, without finding love?
Yes.
And I'm just like, I didn't even think to ask that until now because
Yeah.
yeah, it seems like what what happened was divine. How it happened was
Yeah.
divine, and it
I
helped
do think
you
about it
grow.
though. I don't know if I
Yeah.
would be here, to be honest, in Spain. When I left after 2 years of teaching English in 2016, I was like, I hate this country. I'm never coming back. Yeah, I was like, what the heck? I'm not coming back here. This place sucks. Like, I'm not living here. And the idea really was that maybe my partner could live in the United States. But because of like visa paperwork, we weren't dating for that long. And for him to be able to like legally come to the US, we would have had to get married. And we were like, well, okay, maybe not. Let's not like get ahead of ourselves now. Let's just take this one day at a time. So I am very happy that I live here now, though. I think the lifestyle that I have um, is like closer to the lifestyle that I have always dreamt of, and I don't think I would have would have the same opportunity or chance to create that lifestyle in the United States. Maybe I would because you never know, but I think the amount of input and like energy work that I would have to put in over there, um, I don't think it really compensates. So I'm able to enjoy like more simple things over here. I love the sunshine. I love like a slower pace. And I do feel, I think, actually a lot safer over here.
Oh, that's important.
Yeah. Like I
That's
don't
crucial.
feel scared to walk at home, like to my house at night. Like even in Madrid. I think if I were like, of course, there's like some areas I think you always have to be careful, but I think when I would go to like networking events and come home maybe at like 1 o'clock in the morning and have to walk like 10-ish minutes, 10, 12 minutes from the metro to my house. And I was like, cool, it's like a little stroll. And I never felt like that internal fear that I'm sure you are familiar with when you're walking down the street and you're like, okay, I'm going to pull out my
Yeah.
keys early just in case.
Yeah. I always have a weapon of choice on me. And to those who don't live in the United States and you're out on the outside looking in, I am not talking about a gun. I'm not talking about a pew pew. I
Okay.
I that's something I will never have in my possession. I don't personally believe in having to use that to defend
Yeah.
myself. And I feel like yeah, that's not, clearly not my weapon of choice. All right. But I keep that in mind as I'm like walking along.
Oh,
That I
yeah.
need to have something. I have to yeah.
It's
So
so
good.
different. So
Yeah.
different.
I'm so glad that you feel safe.
Yeah.
That's very important.
Hmm.
Okay, well, I'm looking at time and we're about at that time. So I'm going to ask you one more question
Okay.
and then we're going to wrap up.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, wow. You've been in and out of Spain since 2014 and here we are in 2025. I don't know if you thought that when you first made that initial move for that teaching program that you would be there for as long as you have, but now that you are permanently, it seems to be, in Spain, what words of advice would you provide to the younger version of yourself?
Oh, oh my gosh. I don't know if I've ever thought about this. Mainly because younger me did not even imagine living abroad for a long time.
Mm.
I think younger me was just like, let's do Europe, like European gap year, 1 or 2 years, and then come home, get a corporate job, and be like top of the game, climbing the corporate ladder. I guess I would tell younger me maybe to continue scratching that curiosity that she has, that there are different ways to do things. Not only in terms of like work, but there are different ways to live an aligned life based off of what she values instead of trying to fit into, I guess, just the standard mold of this is what you should value, and you're a little weird if you want to prioritize something else. I would tell her to continue scratching that curiosity and keep looking for different ways. I think that's what she was really looking for. Just, I guess, proof that you can value different things. And not only can you value different things, but you can create a life that supports those values and not be weird about it.
Cassandra, thank you so much for joining us today. I greatly appreciate your insight. I am so, if no one has told you this week, I am so proud of you for making that journey and being so open to the experience, because a lot of people, they move from one city to another in the same state and they don't even really give it a chance. And you crossed the pond and
A big one.
you've made it the big pond, and you've
Big
made a life for yourself, and you've met the love of your life in the process. And
Yeah.
that gives me hope. I'm in the process of figuring things out, but I
Oh!
I've
Wait, for a
like
relationship or like moving?
moving.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Because I mean, I've always wanted to, but I have been guilty of letting people who've never done anything like that be in my ear, and just like fear mongering in a sense. So I'm like halfway to 40 and I'm still healthy, and I really want to live the life that I dreamed of when I was in high school or even in college, wanting to study abroad, wanting to be abroad. And maybe now it's different because I have a better understanding of what privilege means once I leave the country, and how my footprint contributes to the betterment or the detriment of people with lived experiences in the places that they reside.
Mm.
So I really I want to dive deeper. Like I want to understand the history of countries that I've never learned in the U.S. because uh, what is it called? Banned books. There things are happening here,
Yeah.
and I'm just
Things
like,
are
why?
happening.
Why are we banning books about cultures? Like I want to actually leave now for that reason, so I can learn for myself.
Yeah.
And I don't want to shield myself or be afraid of what's going to happen if my cushy little income is no longer existent once I leave. But I want to
I
do it while I'm
think
young and
there
healthy.
is there is a lot of money out in the world. This is not related to moving or work or anything, but my belief is that there is a lot of money in the world, and it's just finding different ways to make it magnetized to us.
Yeah,
That's really
you're right.
exciting, though. I'm excited for you.
Yeah, and it's people like you who have given me like that push that I need. Like hearing like some people's families have been very supportive, some people have not, but they did it anyways. And now their families are more open to the experience. I mean, at the end of the day, who's paying your bills?
Exactly. I am. And that means I get to decide what I am doing with my life.
Right. So, with that being said, yeah, I've given myself a timeline, a certain goal, but I'm doing it with an open mind and a greater understanding of how my decisions impact others
Yeah,
wherever I go. And
that's so
um,
true.
yeah, just keeping in mind though that that honeymoon phase may not be there forever, but um, I'm here for the good, the bad, and the ugly. So
Yeah.
yeah.
As my littlest sister said, although my mom doesn't like this phrase, um, we are here for a good time, not a long time. As morbid as that sounds, potentially. Thank you so much for having me. This conversation was great.
Yes,
And I
thank
hope it
you for
inspires others.
it. Definitely has inspired me. So, but I hope it inspires others, and I'm sure it will.
Yeah.
So yeah, everyone, if you are enjoying this conversation, I invite you to like, share, and subscribe the Relocate podcast, which is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. I drop new episodes every Wednesday, so I appreciate you tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and please support Cassandra as well. She has an amazing platform. I mentioned earlier, I'll mention it again. If you haven't already, take a look at the description. All of her information is there. Connect with her. She's a cool
Yeah, come
person.
say
I know you heard a
hi.
story.
Let me
Yeah.
know if you're here in Spain. Well, you
Yes.
too, Kirsten, and the people who are listening.
We'll do it all. And if you're ever in Austin, Texas, that's where I'm located.
Okay.
South by Southwest
Yes.
is like a very big thing here, and this is a great space for creatives.
Yes. I've
So,
always wanted to go.
but yeah, tap in with me
Yeah,
while
I
I'm
will. I
here.
will.
Yeah, I'll be more than happy to connect you. All right. Well, take care. Have a lovely day, everyone, and see you on the flip side.
Bye, everyone.